Let's talk about the attendees who are coming to your Remo events and how you can make sure that they get the most out of the connections that they are making at your events. It's a technique called engineering serendipity. I'm Seth Resler. I'm from Community Marketing Revolution. And before we get into this, I want to let you know that I have a free Remo quick start guide that'll help you get your first Remo events up and off the ground. You can download that using the link that's in the description of this video. I want to talk to you about one of my favorite terms. It is called engineering serendipity. And I learned what it meant while hosting virtual events on the Remo platform. You see, I was hosting events for Detroit artists and entertainers to get together and meet with each other. And one day I'm hosting one of these events and a guy shows up and I ask him what he does. And he says, I fix up computers that are broken and I give them to kids who can't afford computers. He said, I'm trying to turn it into a nonprofit. And I asked him what he would need to make that happen. He said, well, I need more computers and I need more kids. So I called over somebody else that I knew at the virtual event who ran a very similar nonprofit, except she ran it for art supplies. And I introduced the two of them and I told her what he was trying to do. And I watched as they sat there and they talked for the next 45 minutes. What I later found out is that they not only talked that day, but they've talked almost every month since then. And she has helped him build an organization, a nonprofit that is now in 3 different states. Now that right there is what we call serendipity. It's when two people connect and something bigger comes out of it. It's when Paul McCartney and John Lennon meet and they say, hey, let's start a band together. It's when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak meet and they say, hey, let's start a company together. It's those connections that lead people to get married or start a company or start a band or whatever it is, and something bigger comes out of it. Now here's the thing. You cannot make serendipity happen. There's a certain element of chance to it, a certain element of luck. But you can create conditions under which serendipity is more likely to happen. And that is called engineering serendipity. So I want you to think about this with your Remo virtual events. I want you to ask that question. How can I create conditions in my virtual event where these chance encounters that lead to something bigger, this serendipity, is more likely to happen? I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can use the Remo platform to engineer serendipity. And the first one is this. You can create custom questions on the Remo registration form and then use the answers to those questions to assign people to specific tables. Let's log into the back end of a Remo event and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I have logged into the back end of a Remo event. We're calling this a teacher's meetup. And let's just say, for example, that this is an opportunity for different teachers to meet and mingle with each other. And what I want to do is I want to connect teachers based on the grade that they teach. So, for example, I want to put all the 3rd grade teachers at one table and all the 4th grade teachers at another table and all the 5th grade teachers at a different table. And I'm doing that because I'm hoping that that will allow them to connect. And because they have something in common, there's a good chance that serendipity will happen, that they'll start to talk to one another. They'll find out that they have the connection. And ultimately, maybe something comes out of that. Maybe they decide to do some sort of project or create some sort of workshop or lesson plan, something like that. You never know. So in order to do this, I am going to open up the advanced menu in the left tab. And I am going to go to the registration form. We'll click on that and we'll add a question. And we'll just make this a very simple question, single select, and we'll just add, what grade do you teach? And we can add a couple of answers in there, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and I can make this required, and we can save that question, right? Now that we are collecting that information, now that we know what grades each of our attendees teach, we're going to use that information to assign them to tables. And let me show you how this works. So I am going to click on invitations over here in the left menu. And if I scroll down, I can see the people who have registered for the event. Now, these people didn't actually register through the registration form. I just manually added them in the back end. That's why you don't actually see any answers filled out in the custom question that I put here. But if they had filled out the registration form, this information will be filled out. So you would see the 3rd, 4th, or 5th here in this column about what grade do you teach. Now, there is a bit of a manual process to this. You are going to have to export your answers either as a PDF or a CSV and just save it to your computer. Once you do that, go ahead and print that list up, and then we're going to click on Assign Tables in the left form. And you can go in and you can look at the list that you've printed up, and based on that, you can assign tables. So let's say teacher 1 teaches 3rd grade, and let's say according to our list, teacher 2 teaches 4th grade, and teacher 3 teaches 5th grade. But teacher 4 also teaches 3rd grade, so we're going to put them there at table 1 with teacher 1, and maybe teacher 5 also teaches 4th grade, so we're going to put them there at table 10 with the other 4th grade teacher. And so by doing this, you can essentially engineer serendipity. You can increase the chances that something good, something bigger is going to come out of having these people who have something in common at the same tables. So that's one way to do it. Now let's talk about a second way that you can engineer serendipity at your Remo event. And this one's pretty simple. All you do with this one is just talk to the people when they first come into your event, but have a question or two ready so that you can use that information to then connect them to other people who are there. So for example, I have frequently hosted speed networking events for broadcasting students. We've been trying to connect broadcasting students with professional broadcasters who are hiring or looking for interns. And our goal, the serendipity that we're trying to achieve, is to land a student in either an internship or a job. So here's how we engineer the serendipity in these meetups. We ask the broadcasting students when they first enter the virtual event 2 questions. We ask them where they're from and what type of broadcasting they're interested in. And for example, if somebody walks in and they say, well, I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I'm really interested in sports play-by-play announcing, then we know, hey, you should go talk to Jim. He's over at table 6, and that's what he does. And we can make that connection happen, and it is very likely that there's going to be serendipity there, and it might land one of these students in an internship or in a job. And there's a third way that you can engineer serendipity at your Remo event, and that is very simply by naming the tables. And if you name the tables in a way that people decide that they're going to go to a specific table because it matches their interests, well then serendipity is more likely to happen. So let's go into the back end of our teachers event with Remo again, and let's look at how we might do this. So I have actually logged into the front end of my Remo event, not the back end. And here I can name the tables. So let's say, for example, that we want the teachers to self-segregate. We want them to group themselves based on the subjects they teach, not the grades. And so what we're going to do is we are going to name each table after a different subject. And then we can make an announcement, either whether we're in presentation mode or we can do it in the group chat. We can tell people, okay, go sit down at the table with the subject that you teach. So let me just show you how to do this. I'm going to move over here to table 1 in the top left corner. I will click on the 3 dots there, and I'll click on table settings, and then I can just rename this biology. And then I can go over to table number 3, and again, click on the 3 dots, and I can name this PE. And then we can go to table number 7, and I click on the 3 dots, and we can name this history. And so on and so forth. But by encouraging people to go to the tables that match, something that they teach or some other characteristic about themselves, you are engineering serendipity. You are creating conditions under which people are more likely to make a connection where something happens. So the next time you are hosting an event on Remo, I want you to think about that. I want you to ask yourself, how can I engineer serendipity? How can I create conditions that make it so that the connections people make at my virtual event are likely to be meaningful and productive for them? I'm Seth Resler, the founder of Community Marketing Revolution. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, I've got that free Remo Quick Start Guide. If you want to download that, you can find the link in the description and it will get you up and started on Remo, or you can check out this video here. Thanks for watching.